I'm Bill Popp. I'm President and CEO of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. Well, basically everything is my fault. I am the President and CEO that sets the strategic direction of the organization. I manage the staff. I propose new policy for the organization and for the community. And my job is to empower my team to be as successful as they can be. Well, Anchorage is both the largest city in the state of Alaska, but also one of the most distant urban centers from anywhere in the United States. We have just over 300,000 people in Anchorage and just over 730,000 in a geography of the state of Alaska that it would stretch across from coast to coast in the lower 48 states. So our city is the economic hub of the state. We have a lot of energy and a lot of dynamism in that economy because of that. But on the same hand, we're very dependent on factors that can affect us, like the price of a barrel of oil, an ounce of gold, or a pound of fish. And those are pretty distinct challenges for us. We're also very far away, which makes our situation logistically very expensive. We have a challenge with the cost of living in Anchorage as the 14th most expensive city in the United States. And we also have a challenge in the fact that we have very good unemployment, which sounds like an oxymoron, but when everybody has a job, it's hard to find people to fill jobs when you want to create jobs. So those are just a couple of our challenges. Well, the first thing is that every day is different. There's a different challenge, there's a different aspect of economic development that I have to wrap my hands around and deal with. And that's fun. I mean, it's just plain and simple fun. I mean, it's problem solving at its best. The second thing is I'm having an effect on my neighbors. I'm doing something that, if I'm doing it right, can make the community opportunities better for my neighbors and my friends and my family. And I've got a lot of family in Anchorage, and so there's that really personal piece. I want my grandchildren to be able to come back and live in Anchorage if they want to. And my grandson is there right now, and I know he's going to leave because his family is in the military, but I want him to come back, and I want him to come back because he's inspired by the opportunities and the adventure that Alaska offers. Don't get too caught up in the practice. The practice is incredibly important, but you got to stick your head up and look around every now and then, and you got to talk to people outside of the practice, and you got to kind of vet what you're doing against the needs of the community and the perspectives of the community and their perspectives of what you're doing. And it's really easy to get caught up in the professional practice and stay within your bubble and lose sight of what's going on around you and how you're being perceived and how your efforts are being perceived in the community. You've really got to keep your head up and your ears open. I've had a number of would-be entrepreneurs who were really kind of flaying around that my organization has helped to get their head in the game, to help them to understand what it is to be an entrepreneur. And I've helped a lot of innovators who've got great ideas but don't have the sense that God gave a stick on how to run a business, and helping them to understand that they need help. And my favorite thing is to see them succeed. When I see them, actually hire their first employee, or sign that first rent, or that lease agreement, and start to sell that first widget, or sell that first service. That's just an exciting moment for us, and we've had a few of those, and that's really a big thing. And then it's also they don't happen often, but the big project, the big retailer who you work with for 6 years to try and help them to figure out that Anchorage is a good market to invest in, that they're going to set sales records, that they're going to do great things, and help them to finally find their way, and then help them through all the disastrous mistakes that they make because, oh, that's okay, we know how to do that, when they don't understand the Alaska context of how to do that. And those are things that are also, a sense of job done. And that's one of the things that I look for too. Interestingly enough, it was a mayor in a smaller community that I used to live in before I came back to Anchorage to take my current role. I mean, I've been in Alaska since 1968, and a gentleman by the name of Don Gilman, who was a former state senator and then the borough mayor of the Kenai Peninsula Borough. And Don was just, he wasn't an economic developer by profession, but he was an economic developer by avocation, and he just got it. He knew how things looked in the view of the public, he knew how things looked in the view of the practice, and he understood how to match those two and to find the things that made sense for the amount of investment of time and effort and resources versus the things that, they might be shiny and flashy, but, they really aren't going to do what they say they're going to do. And Don always was just somebody who helped me to, sort the wheat from the chaff, if you will. And I, he's gone now, but he was a great role model for me, and I still think of him very fondly. And I ask myself every now and then, what would Don think about this idea that I'm about to make a decision on? Establishing professional standards, probably the CECD, the Certified Economic Developer Standard, is one of the great steps towards making this practice something that has a greater level of respect and a greater level of efficacy. When IEDC brought about the CECD program and got it going and started to move it, there was a little bit of doubt and, what is this, just, another, kind of shiny piece of paper to hang up on the wall and forget about? The CECD actually has significant meaning. I mean, in Alaska, we only have 4 CECDs in the entire state. And we're trying to get more, and we have several who are now young staff members who we are encouraging to get into the program and take it, because it establishes a level of professionalism that I think previously the practice lacked. I think that there are a lot of small things, and then there's a few things that I think are big. I think it's more the accomplishment of changing my organization into what it is today that gives me the most satisfaction. When I took over the organization 9 years ago, it was more of a political and advocacy organization. Private nonprofit 501c6, but it hadn't really had a lot of good, solid focus in terms of the professional practice. And I have slowly but surely been able to steer my board and advise my board and guide my board to a point now where they have embraced the idea that we're not an advocacy organization, that we'll take a position every now and then on something that we think is really important, but we're more focused on the professional practice of economic development and not the distractions that can come with advocacy. And I think for me, with what we are trying to do in establishing a business retention and expansion program, focusing on entrepreneurship, focusing on placemaking, those are the kinds of things that I think are going to have the greatest impact on the community and are already starting to have those impacts in many small different ways. Well, first and foremost, IEDC has offered me a tremendous opportunity to collaborate, to learn from the successes and the failures of others, and to understand that we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel. We should be just taking the wheel from one community and adapting it to our community's conditions. That kind of collaboration, I think, has been one of the great successes for me in being a member of IEDC. Another success is the research that IEDC produces through its white papers. That is a phenomenal body of work that is now being used by my organization to inform local political leadership, local business community leadership, local nonprofit leadership in terms of what is the state of conditions in different aspects of economic development and community development, and what are some of the best practices that are addressing those issues that face the communities across the United States. We have a bit of a problem in Alaska in the fact that we don't care how they do it out there is the kind of the catchphrase. I think that's wrong. I think we should be looking to plagiarize as many great ideas as we can and learn from as many bad experiences as we can, and IEDC offers that platform and that collaboration. 3 things: technology, analytics, and a professional practice. It's really simple and straightforward. We have new technologies that are just phenomenal in terms of GIS mapping capabilities, demographic profiling, the capacity to be able to put your community's story online compared to the old methodology of having to spend weeks with a particular business interest in developing the answers to their questions. We can often answer those questions without even knowing that they're asking them. And that's a pretty amazing step forward on technology. The analytics are critical in terms of being able to understand our communities better, but also to be able to understand our organizations better. How are we performing? How are our programs performing on behalf of the community? And then analytics that we can use to demonstrate to the community the value of what we do, which I think is a key piece. And then finally, the professional practice. The ability to bring about given accepted ethical standards and practices in the art of economic development. I think we need to look for the less than usual suspect in terms of college level students and even high school students who I think we should be talking to about the art of economic development, the professional practice of economic development. We bring in any number of job shadow groups from our local university into our offices to spend a day with us. And they'll come from all different divisions of the traditional world of the College of Business and Economics. There'll be accountants, and there'll be business administration degree chasers, and it's all the standards that you see. But you don't see anything that says economic developer in progress, and it's a dialogue that I think has to start not only in high school or in college, but also in high school. I think that when you get kids excited about being entrepreneurs and imbuing those kinds of skills and abilities and bringing those out at the high school grade level, you'll see a better level of interest in the college degree students looking to get into the practice, because it is a challenge for us. I mean, we're still not really well known. I mean, everybody throws around the phrase economic development, but everybody has a different interpretation of it. And I think that the work that we're doing right now is I think a path towards making it more of a professional pathway, starting in high school and through college. I think what makes up a good economic developer is a kind of a hodgepodge of the ability to problem solve, combined with the ability to communicate, combined with the ability to be a salesman or a saleswoman. I mean, just plain and simple. You've got to be able to understand the issue from multiple dimensions. You've got to be able to dig into the issue and start to identify paths forward to address the issue or the opportunity. And then you got to be able to sell people on the idea and the strategy. And if you can't communicate that well, if you can't sell it well, you're going to have a problem. And often I find that the most successful economic developers are those who've had experience in the marketplace, in business, where they've had to go out and do the work that the business community expects of its people. And with that experience, I think you bring that knowledge and that feeling to the practice of economic development, you tend to have more success. If it's strictly an academic pathway from school to practice, it's a harder road to hoe for those individuals, in my mind, in terms of being successful. And I think it makes it a more challenging environment for them. I'm more of a fan of hiring people with some experience in business. Doesn't necessarily have to be related directly to something in salesmanship or anything like that, but just knowing how a business functions from the inside. We are embarked on a journey to make Anchorage the #1 city in America to live, work, and play, that was board-driven, that is now been handed off to the community and is now community-driven, and that emotional attachment is very powerful and very passionate. Joel Kotkin, the author of The Next 100 Million, shared with us 2 questions that we should ask our community, and we did, and the answers that we have are amazing and demonstrates that emotional attachment. Why do you live here? Why would you leave? And you leave the answers open-ended, and you'll get everything from one-word answers to novellas, and we got a lot of novellas. And we had almost 1,300 responses to the last time we surveyed the community just last year. And that emotional attachment, I think, is an incredible force for change if you can harness it and point it in the direction it needs to be pointed, to say, we're not satisfied with this condition, we want it to be better, and we know that if it's better, our community will be better. Things really get going when you can harness that emotional attachment. I think we sell ourselves short quite often, and it's the nature of the practice. We're kind of plugging away in the background. We're working with people that don't necessarily put us in front of the cameras or in front of the community in a way that we can be visibly seen as having an effect. And a lot of times we're working in circumstances where we're not allowed to talk about it because we're under non-disclosure agreements with a particular business interest because of competitive issues. And it makes it really challenging, to kind of stand up and toot your own horn. I find ways to toot my own horn with my people. Because it's not just me, it's the people around me. And so we find ways to collaborate and to celebrate amongst ourselves. I think that's a key step. And then it's important to get out and, without being braggadocious about it, get out and tell the community what you've done. Tell them the number of businesses you've assisted, even if you can't give them the details. Tell them the number of initiatives that you've been working on, and make sure that you've got good analytics. But then tell that story and take pride in it and have have some good feelings about, the good works that are a result of your passion as an economic developer.